Hi, this is Zdorovstov with SDSU Extension. I'm a Community Development Field Specialist. And now I'm going to talk about planning tips for your garden. When planning out your youth garden, it's very important to evaluate the site that you're looking at. Minimum 6 hours of sunlight is required, but honestly, you should probably even bump that up to 8 to 12 hours. Anything that forms a fruit on it, such as a tomato or a cucumber, really will do much better when there's that higher amount of sunshine. When you get down in that 6-hour range and less, things just won't grow as well, and you'd be pretty much forced to be growing things like lettuces or root crop. You want a level, well-drained site. You want to have a water source nearby. No one wants to be hauling water, so make sure you have a faucet and hose that you can access to water your garden. Think about expansion possibilities. It's always best to start small with these projects and then grow over time. Is it accessible? Will the kids be able to participate in the garden and reach the garden? Very important too, if you're going to be gardening in the ground, call before you dig. You don't want to be tilling and working the ground and then find out you're going to hit something and cause a problem. So call 811 before you dig in the spot. And then also do a history check. It's important to know if there was any herbicides used on this ground. Some can last in the soil for a number of years, so you want to know what was in the soil prior. You want to know if the property had been flooded, if there could be potential for any contaminants to have been flooded into that space. Look into any former infrastructure that could have been there. Is there a possibility of lead for some reason being on that property, lead paint? You can do soil tests for specific toxins such as lead if you have a suspicion. And just asking about the history may indicate if there's something there that you need to be worried about. You need to think about if you want to plant in the garden or if you want to use raised beds in the ground, I should say. Gardening in the ground is just fine, but there are definitely some benefits to raised bed, especially in a school garden or youth garden situation. Raised beds can help improve your soil, especially if you have a situation where you have really hard clay compact soils or soil with a high pH. You can put in an artificial growing space by putting in a raised bed with good soil in it. They drain well. In the spring, they warm up earlier. Perennial weeds can be less of a problem in a raised bed. They're very comfortable for working conditions. You can stand up straight in the taller beds and don't have to bend over, and that kind of working condition usually leads to a much cleaner space. For children or even adults that may be in a wheelchair, then a raised garden works really well in that situation. Or if you have someone that has trouble bending over, a raised garden works well in that situation. Overall aesthetics often are a benefit of a raised bed. They look nice, they look clean, and kids can do artwork and paintings and different projects on the sides of the beds. You need to develop your plan. First, look at the boundaries. Look at the property perimeter so that you aren't going into somebody else's lot. Look at the existing trees and vegetation that you're planning to keep in this space, and how will that cast shade on your garden. Mark those out on your plan. Mark out any driveways and paths, walkways, buildings, your water source. Look on your property if there's an area that you might want to keep for perennials, those plants that come back year after year that you don't till under. Is there a space for perennials on your project property? Do you want to compost? You would need a space for that. Are you going to have a tool shed? Consider those things. When you have all your features marked out, then start to lay out your plots, mark out where your plots are going to be, whether they're garden plots in the ground or raised beds. And also consider if you're going to put any kind of a garden sign or naming of the garden somewhere on the property. When determining the costs, you need to first think about how big of a garden I'm going to have. So to put it into perspective, a lot of the Sioux Falls school gardens that we're working with tend to be 8 to 10 raised beds. I've also done some projects with in-ground gardens. I had a garden that was a 20 by 30 garden, and that garden was for 25 students that would come out twice a week and work in it for an hour. I wouldn't go much bigger than that, though, because with those 25 kids, it was pretty hard to keep up on the maintenance unless you plan on putting in extra time. So once you figure out the square footage of your space, you can move on to estimating the costs. Garden materials, things like plants and soil, estimate $1.30 to $2 per square foot. If you're going to have any contracted labor, maybe rototilling done, estimate 70 cents to $1 per square foot. Water. It's best if you have a water source. Installing a water faucet is extremely expensive, so it's best if you can tap into a building that already exists. The cost of water itself really isn't as high as you would think. I would estimate about $5 to $12 for a 4-month period of time. This is based on the water numbers we've seen from the Sioux Falls community garden projects. And really they've ranged from about 0.004 cents all the way up to 3 cents per square foot. Just depends on the year, if it's a dry, hot year. Also, another factor would be is if you're rural and your water costs are higher than they would be in town. Additional costs would include any educational materials you may need to buy. There's a number of free resources out there, so I wouldn't expect that you would have to buy a curriculum, but there are some out there and different workbooks and things for youth. And then your tools, that would be probably your biggest cost. Hand trowels, little hand kid-sized hose are great in the garden. Gloves, watering cans, all of those things. You need to figure out how many you're going to need for your project and then start pricing them out. For gardening information based on South Dakota growing conditions, I recommend visiting this website. This is our vegetable gardening publication, and one nice thing about this publication is it lists all the crops and when you would plant them, how long it takes till they're harvestable, and any other special notes, things like spacing and amount of recommended per person in the garden. So this is a really good publication for getting information on topics specific to South Dakota vegetable gardening. Last, I recommend that you visit our other iGrow podcasts that we have on curriculum resources. There are definitely some free resources that we recommend on here. We have a clip on SDSU specific resources, we have a clip on national resources, and we have a clip on nutrition specific resources that you can use to tie back to your youth gardening project. If you have any additional questions, please contact me. My information is listed here, my phone number and email. And thank you for watching our iGrow podcast.